Sure, Planet Zoo 2 has aquatics, it has birds, and so many more cool things. But today we are going to look at the scenery and themes, because we will be getting 9, I repeat, 9 themes in total at launch. There will be 4 returning themes somehow contained. There will be a generic planet theme and 4 new themes. Now, the question is, which is which? Are the 4 themes on the website, North, West, East, and South, are these the new themes? Or are they the old themes? Or are they kind of somewhat in between? Well, we won't finally find out, but I do have a good idea. And at the end of the video, hopefully we have a bit of a clearer view what that is. Now, we are going to get into the every single detail, which piece is which, and, you know, just debating about what we can do with them already, how to flip them around and do some crazy stuff with it. So let's get into it. Alright, we're starting with this entrance scene, which is actually the scene from the countdown. And I did this because we do have a couple of backstage items to it. First of all, a big disclaimer. The upcoming images, including the one you saw on the thumbnail, are done in Assistant with AI. I did use Gemini to design and create something like this, but I'll get to that in a second. I will be talking you through the in-game image over here first, and then we go over the overview, because it is a little bit easier to talk about that, but I'll get to this in a moment. Just being fully transparent over here and making sure that the ones who will pan out of this video now will do it eventually, so we will talk about that in a second. But let's first of all have a look at this over here, because there is so much to see. And this is the first moment where we have to be relatively precise. So I do think Frontier has learned from Planet Coaster 2 situation, and people were asking so much for the old themes, so Frontier brought back 5 old themes already into Planet Coaster 2, which is a very interesting number considering they talked about kind of 5 themes returning, or 4, depends on how you see that with the planet theme. But we can already tell that there's a couple of things in here that look oddly familiar, which is, for example, over here, that bucket and some of the stuff over here. And the same goes for that little pile of rope. And obviously the letters, but let's not talk about these letters because you know, they are what they are, you know, these are the in-game fonts and they're not particularly specific that you would say. But also, these kind of, what is this, a little support beam or whatever, they look also oddly familiar to what we've been, I think it was like in the Indonesia pack or what that was, like we had these wonderful, the second Asia pack actually, in which we had these items. They look oddly familiar to me too. And also some of these plant icons over here, like on not icons, but like plant variation, look a little bit like what we had in the conservation pack. But also these kind of rattan buckets over here, not all of them. Some of them look new, but some others don't. And if we talk about, for example, these little items down here, I do believe these came also with the conservation pack, if I'm not wrong. And also this kind of little trash bag over here looks oddly familiar to me. If I'm not wrong, that was also in the conservation pack. The same goes about some of these just baskets of also here. And we also do have some typical kind of pallets. These are not Euro pallets, by the way. We as a German, we know our Euro pallets, and we do have like a little mug over here that also makes a return, but that one is obviously tied to the wonderful souvenir shops. But also these pallets also were featured in the conservation pack. We will be finding a couple more pieces from the conservation pack, and this is very interesting to talk about that, and why we would not name them directly, but I'll get to that in a minute. So next image is actually, as I said earlier, this is AI generated. I did a bit of a workaround. I used the brand new flow agent to you know, kind of rip apart some of the items to be sure that we have that, and now we get a bit of a better view of these single items potentially. And I think, you know, you can say about what you want, but there was no, I mean, obviously I wouldn't have been able to do that myself in a given time. The same goes, I wouldn't have been paid someone to create this for me, and this is just for the overview sake of the overview, and it was also much faster than me just kind of snapping all these individual items on my computer, which would have been a waste of energy in comparison to these few clicks I did over here. And in fact, fact, I think it did a pretty good job over here. Now, obviously, some of these pieces, we could say that, for example, this thing over here, most likely the kind of leaves and flowers on top of it would also be individual items, and then that kind of round awning with that whatever pattern in the back is a single piece. The same goes for the supports. Potentially this is a single beam, that sign would be one, and then each individual leaf would be one individual piece. These different kind of bags over here look also pretty damn cool. The palette with a physically interesting sunshade on it. We do have a very cool letter, and all these kind of little props over here. I was also double checking where they got this from. So some of these things are obviously kind of, I don't know where exactly they come from. I think this kind of thing over here was interpreted as being a live buoy over here. Not that we wouldn't be getting this, but yeah, that was a bit of a weird one. So not every item you do see in here is actually an in-game piece, but also the pressure washer over here, also a fantastic piece if you ask me. I generally love these backstage things. However, I was also thinking about this the whole time, like, is this going to be actually functioning? Because it's an oddly specific backstage piece. Like, it's just like, really, why would you put that there? Maybe this is a new kind of thing to be used by the staff members for, like, maybe habitats or so. I don't know. That would be very fun to see. And as we know, we do get modular backstage areas anyways, or keeper areas or facilities, however you want to call that. This is absolutely a potential. Anyhow, let's continue with the next thing over here, and that is and let me just peek over, this is the east set, and now things are starting to get a little bit interesting. Now, let me just say first of all, if this is a new set, if this is the new set East, I do hope that then one of the returning themes is obviously not the Indonesian set or Polynesian set or whatever we had there, because that would be way too familiar. Now, what I do see over here is a lot of pieces that, first of all, look very similar to what has been used here on the entrance. So one of these, the beams and stuff like that, like this beam over here, looks very familiar. All these rattan pieces, and but the wall over here is also pretty damn cool. Like this kind of natural kind of stone with that mortar in between, and just like very clean look. I think this would be very fun to use when when you use it with scaling, for example. We do get a very nice look in the back here of a typical kind of wood roof with a lovely little, almost like, it looks like an outdoor gazebo kind of style with these like open wooden wall thingies to, make airflow a bit nicer. But we also have these like almost Chinese, Asian kind of lamps over here hanging down with these kind of typical long, and we have a dark thatch kind of roof design, which is a bit more, as I said, leaning towards, it's not tropical, it's more like this typical Asian kind of darker thatch. Or is that even thatch, or is it called rattan as well? I'm not entirely sure how you would call that. But yeah, looking at these things as they were individualized now, you can see also a couple of wonderful ideas that could pan out with this. Like these lampposts over here obviously are a bit wrong, because they do look even greater than the AI thought it is. It's like this wonderful lamppost over here. Looks really cool with this kind of semi-open flower. Big fan of that. I love these walls over here. Unfortunately, the AI didn't really catch them, but they did catch these bench designs, which I find very, very nice looking. And all these kind of little plants over here. You can actually catch a couple of these plants if you look closely, which is very nice. Not all of them, but some of these were in. I did give it all the images, by the way, as a reference, and then was trying to figure out which style is which. So that is for the East style. But again, a lot of these things look oddly familiar to me. I love the fact how there is a staff member, by the way, also sitting on a bench, which seems to be a new routine to have a little rest. I love that. This adds a little bit to the realism, because why not could a staff member just, take a little rest on a chair? What is also pretty interesting is that for the first time ever, we do see a banana tree seemingly have a bloom, because there are some bananas on it. And as we know, animals will be able to feed from trees. That is very cool, obviously. I'm not sure if, for example, like chimpanzees or so would grab themselves like an apple over here. That would be cool. You can see this with almost all of these banana trees. They do now have that. Oh my god, is that a mosquito or is that actually a spider? Oh, there's like a big spider running over my desk over here. Give me a second. Okay, well, I brought this outside. I did not cut this out of the video. That was an oddly weird situation that I wanted to just keep in. However, speaking of keeping in, I also saw something over here that kind of sparked my interest. As you can tell, this looks to be a hat of someone. I first of all thought that this is potentially being a restroom, but then again, I'm certainly sure that they wouldn't show guest in the restroom, or there would be a funny kind of Sims-like blur effect of some sort, which I don't really think. But if so, if we get more open restrooms, at least the area where you wash your hands or so, I would absolutely love that, because this is something that always kind of broke my own, you know, immersion out of the game, them going into these kind of black boxes. What I also love the fact down here that you can see them sitting on the restaurant, like on restaurant tables, and I love the fact that we seemingly have some different tray kind of colors, and also different colors for like the mugs and bottles or whatnot. It's like a dark green paired with that lilac or so. Really damn cool. I love that. Let's go on to the next one, which is the very interesting looking north theme. And I do say very interesting because that is a unseen theme that we haven't really seen so much in the game prior. And what I do love about this theme is that it just really brings the essence of a north theme, but it's not catered too much to a specific area. It looks like a very much like a modern-esque Scandinavian kind of type, but it equally also would allow us to go to like northern US as well. And so I really like that. Also, can we talk about how nice these fir trends over here are? Like, oh, is that a fir? I think it is, but like also this pine tree over here. They look, just the foliage in this game looks incredibly stunning. Also like that planter in the front over here. I certainly don't know all the names of these plants, but it looks really cool. And what I do love about this pack specifically is that it just seems to come with a couple of new elements that we didn't have before. I also am freaking in love with that fence design over here. It looks to be a lot more modern with that like kind of, you know, dark gray kind of pillar in the middle, and then the semi-translucent, transparent area here. That bench, my friends, is coming in so handy. It's super flat and super like boxy. And the reason why I like that is you can hide that nicely away. I would actually hide that in, for example, like a rock like this, because then it becomes like, it almost looks like as if people would be sitting on a rock, which is super cool. Also super cool is that staff members seem to wear shorts now, especially the keeper, or can wear shorts. Not sure if that is a variant or so, but very good to see. Now, if we go into the break apart image over here, and I think this time around it did do actually a better job. Obviously, it's definitely not all the pieces we would get, but I'm specifically intrigued by these roof pieces over here, because they looked also oddly specific over here as like, hopefully these will be non-grid pieces, because if this is just a grid roof, I wouldn't love it, but I don't think so, because as you can tell, this seemingly is the actual roof, and the AI also did catch that. Would be nice to have a variant, by the way, with these open windows in, but it looks almost like as if they will be put on top of it, and not like kind of, as you know, you can look through it. You can't technically look through it, I guess. Honestly, I would love to get some frames for the doors, but we know these are the typical kind of doors for the staff rooms. However, we do know that we would potentially now get these as doors for a barrier, almost like, because this will define the entrance to the staff area. As they are modular right now, this will then define the entrance point to a staff area. So we technically do have them as individual pieces, but what I technically what I practically love is how the AI kind of depict some of the plants, because they do essentially look exactly that great. I love that idea of this kind of shorter variant of the lantern, but in fact the lantern, if we were to go back real quick, which it doesn't allow me, there you go. The lantern, as you can see, is a little bit taller and, you know, goes all the way around. I would love to have like a smaller variant of that one too, but it looks really, really cool in a very modern, interesting way though, but it does look fantastic. What you can also peek here in the background is a very interesting front look with a different color scheme going on. This looks to be like a lot more bright wood, and then paired with this like it almost looks like a leaf pattern in here in the middle. Not sure if that's intentional, but it does look really interesting indeed. So that is a very, very interesting theme in my opinion. For me personally, so far the most interesting and most surprising compared to the others. Also, these two boulders over here. I love that the AI did pick these two. Also, I love that they did pick these wooden patterns, because I also figured that the wood looks really cool on these ones. Really damn cool. And it seems like you have a difference in here. These seem to be like really cool kind of wooden beams, while there is almost like I don't know, just a corrugated or like a metal clad wall, because down here that also looks like the same kind of metal clad wall. Not sure if it is, but this, I could see that. But there's this boulder in here, and this boulder, and it's so weird that I'm actually going nuts about a boulder, but it turns out that at the end of the day, most of the rocks in the game, like these ones that we get, don't really look like these typical kind of, I don't know, decorative boulders. They look like actual rocks, which is great. You can do a lot with those. But if you would use them as decorative items in planters, they sometimes do look like these bigger boulders. They sometimes do look a little bit too natural, because they are intended to look natural, and lesser so decorative. And I like the fact that we seem to get some like decorative, almost the ones that you would put in your garden yourself. But these things are freaking expensive, by the way. Anyways, I do love that. I also do love the little bin design over here. That looks to be one of the most generic trash bin designs, and we are all a fan of it. We love generic stuff, because generic stuff means you can also dress it up nicely, or use it in backstage areas, or use it as a filler in a new theme that you're doing, and you don't want to have styles that are too aggressive in a way. Anyways, let's move over to this one. We just checked that. Very nice to see that in its detail. Also, what I need to mention here is this little idea to break it apart with AI, and obviously knowing that the AI will make a lot of mistakes in this specific occasion, was super handy, because it sparked my interest. If I really find that in the image, and if I went into the image, I found out how the AI thought things were done, and so that also gave me an idea how the game actually would function with this. Like, say, you know, for example, with that little chimney piece over here, that most likely is going to be, again, an individual chimney piece, and is not going to be part of that roof, but it's interesting that it did catch that one. So, next up, we do have the so-called planet theme. This is the planet theme, at least that's what it's called on the website, and I'm a little hesitant, because it is fairly interestingly close to the West theme that we're going to talk about in a bit. And this theme over here comes with a couple of interesting pieces. Again, I have asked the AI to set it apart, and it came up with some interesting pieces. And as you can tell, it just gives us, like, typically these, you know, wooden pieces we have, and very generic roof pieces. We can get an idea how to set things together, even though the souvenir shop doesn't come in the wooden style. But then I was like, I saw a couple of very interesting things, like, for example, this wall, or this lantern, or this elephant statue, and I was like, okay, where are these pieces? Where did they see this? And funnily enough, what I did see, I didn't see the elephant statue. I'm not sure where exactly it got it from. It might have been in another picture with this theme, but what there is like this interesting rabbit statue. It's a rabbit, you know, and the reason why that is interesting is because we've never had a rabbit in the game, and the rabbit is obviously a very interesting animal to think about, because it's almost like domesticated, but then again, it could be a very fun animal to have as like a little pet zoo area. The same goes for like these jellyfish in the back. This is definitely something like a jellyfish. So in our Discord, in my Discord, we have a thread going on where all the confirmed animals and like almost like hinted animals can be found. So if you guys are interested, make sure to join my Discord channel. It is in the Planet Zoo 2 chat, and there is a thread connected to it where you can find all the animals confirmed via either press articles or images, or in the trailer, or at least some stuff in the background that is clearly identified. And then there is a list of animals, which is, you know, kind of, it's not even that small. There are actually, yeah, by now we have 8 unconfirmed animals, but that have actually been seen somehow, which is including the rabbit, obviously. So that is very cool, but we wanted to talk about these scenery pieces. The lantern obviously is right in the middle over here. We have this kind of very cool indirect light lantern, almost like as if there's like a light behind that. I love that. And I love the bench design. I love the ground, by the way, over here. The ground pattern is so cool. That's one of the coolest natural paths I've seen. And yeah, this is, I'm not sure if this is just a very clever placement of the shelves, or if this is kind of a new counterpiece, which I would dig if that's a new counterpiece as well, or the option to snap things to the counter would also be good. And then we do have that little artwork of the Asian elephant, which is yet another little giveaway to a confirmed animal in a way, because this sign over here, in comparison to the statues, this is the typical kind of sign that you get when this animal is actually in the game. It's the same kind of style. And interestingly, this kind of wall piece over here, it would have been cool to get this as like a backdrop for a habitat, but in fact it just took that from this incredible looking rock face over here. And oh my god, this must have been done with the in-game rocks and the terrain tool alike, and does that look fantastic. And also these trees look fantastic. I'm getting confused though, the whole, like, I have to talk about this right now. I know the chances are incredibly low, because like we have seen seasons obviously in the UI, but my point is I have seen so many different variants of trees in various conditions now, in a fully non-leafy condition, as in the elephant habitat, for example, from that showcase trailer zoo. I have seen the same kind of trees in a fully blooming green, and now I've seen some of the same trees, like for example this one over here is specifically interesting because I certainly have seen that one in fully green too. So that you get a better view on that one over here either way, because usually, and I know this tree from my Planet Coaster builds, normally that tree is completely green. So I am starting to have a 0.1% hope we could see seasonal changing leaves in the trees. If that is happening, guys, I'm gonna go completely mad. I would be fine if it isn't the case and we get all these different variants and we can place them ourselves. That would be totally fine to me too, but it would obviously clutter the menu quite a bit. But I must admit that this is something I'm very intrigued about, because it also the different shades of orange in here. I mean, obviously with the scenery brush you can do this very nicely, but it looks honestly very good. So yeah, anyways, let's go further to the little next theme, and this theme is the Thouse theme. And here things are getting a little bit more interesting. This is, by the way, where the lemur is being found. There's like a little, it almost looks like a red ruffed lemur. Also, for the ones who were fearing that we only get Chief Leaf, can now be relaxed and relieved, because we also get Chief Beef back, as we have confirmed over here. Same goes for Gulpy Soda, and we do see a lot of thatch going on, different type of thatch that's around. We get these typical African style things. We do get some of these mud wall, I would call it mud wall designs. We have a very cool bench design down here. We have similar, but then again different looking lanterns over here with like very cool flexi collar ropes, as it seems. We have yet another staff member sitting down to chill and relax for a bit. We have that little boat here in the background, which looks really cool. And we have a couple of other things in here with like how nicely done the rock design is. Very cool. I am also a big, huge, incredible fan of the texture on these rocks. These rocks look very fantastic, but also these locks over here, this like kind of a little wobbly-ish look. And again, this gives me an idea, because I have seen this before, this kind of a little wobbly rock and a lock. And I believe that is the African pack, where we had these typical kind of locks over here. And in the African pack, we also had some of these awning styles. In the African pack, we also had as you can see, this thing over here looks like some of these plaster pieces we had in the African pack just sunken into the ground, because they always had these patterns as well. And also these things, even though they look a lot more roundish now, they look also like the plaster walls with this rounded top from the African theme. And keep that in mind, because it's becoming a little bit more important. What I also find very interesting on here is how nicely done the backdrop is with like the different tree lines and stuff. I first of all thought that was a herd of elephants or so, but it certainly isn't. So yeah, I also like the fact that you do have like a very jungle-ish canopy over here, potentially part of this specific zoo. Yeah, this is how the AI set this whole thing apart. This time around, I didn't do that much of a good job, but yet again it did give me a great idea, because when I was looking at this, I was like, okay, it did think the wall looks like this, and this is oddly specific to how the African pack with the mud walls came. And the same goes about the wood stuff. It's the same goes about the different sizes and shapes of the thatch roof. I mean, this is literally the thatch roof we have obviously in the game. The same goes for that one. The planks that it did generate over here, same as this fence, looks oddly familiar, and the same goes for the pottery. So yeah, a lot of familiar things over here, and if we go and have a look at the nature, it did do a good job of capturing the nature in here. Some of the things I really had to look for how it did get them, but yeah, as I said, I gave the AI more images than that, just a couple more screenshots from the video and so on to have a bit of a better basis for that. And also, you know, I did a couple of runs, but I didn't want to overdo it just because it's just for the showcase reason. I think it gives us a good idea. These pieces, unfortunately, we potentially will not get. This is obviously taken from the ground, but thinking about this, it would be really cool to have some cobblestone pieces like that, also with that little weather effect on it. Really would love that. Kind of a cool little touch. Anyhow, let's move on to the last of the new themes, and this is the Weth theme. We do have two of screenshots that we will go through real quick, and yet again, some of the boulders down here, look at how fantastic they look. They seem to be scaled rather down. And now if you look at these wall pieces specifically, and I'm not sure if they're in here, yes, they are in here. Look what the AI did with it, because when I go back into this one, there was a couple of references, but look what the AI did with it. And obviously, looking at this is absolutely the in-game kind of piece we had in the old game. I'm not sure how that set was called, but this is definitely the one set that has been changed from beta to full game, because I remember I have built my lemur dome in the live stream with this kind of wall set, and then, oh, this is the Chinese one then. This must be the Chinese wall set where they had this pattern, and that was changed later on to become to actually look like that. We also have a Gelato Bros sign, obviously, and Gelato Bros clutter, but also like the ground pattern, some of the little items you can find here from the Gelato Bros. I would love, like seeing this, I would love actually to see these things as individual pieces. For certain, we don't get this, but what I do find is these clutter lock pieces and the bench design. If we go back, where this you know, this is super nice, and I think we will see that in the other picture much better next step, because they do have, let's have a little check. I think that was in here. Yeah, no, these are some different bench designs, but in here you can see the lock pieces much better, and also the little blue wildebeest animals down here. This is definitely the picture where I took more inspiration from as well. But yeah, if we go back, you can see some of the designs I really love. I love that little signage over here, even though I wasn't able to find where that was taken from. So sometimes I guess the AI was a bit more looking into what it could have been. It's a bit of a shame, because sometimes I found almost all of the references they took, or it took, I should say, not all of them, but it did help me to focus on certain things. Because if you look at the last thing, it did actually give me a grizzly bear, which obviously it isn't. There is this grizzly bear statue down here, but it did think it was an actual grizzly bear. But you know, I think this also means the bear is kind of confirmed. And if we go further to this, look at all the support beams and how that all looks and how it took these things apart. If we go back, we can find most of the pieces. Really, this is the Yosemite Valley pack, my friends. This is Yosemite Valley as it's living and breathing. I am 100% certain that there's a lot of the pieces I used for Yosemite from, as I said, the Asian pack. It also looks like a little bit of the Arctic pack in here, loads of the Arctic pack pieces. This is one of these slate roof pieces that I've used a million times in the game before, because that is one of the coolest, one of the smallest pieces available that we had for these like jingles without doing them each individual jingle yourself. So that I did use quite a lot. I love these kind of natural logs over here. They almost look like tree logs. And then, yeah, these wooden pieces over here look also specifically interesting. Now, before we go over to a last picture, which is going to be this one over here, but this one is more about the nature. So let me just go back to that very frame just for the moment being to give you my idea. So what I was saying earlier is that I do believe we have not seen the 4 new themes. I do think the 4 themes, north, south, west and east, are returning themes from the first game enriched with new items, because all of these pieces, a lot of these pieces are so oddly specific to the old themes that, and this is now the main reason why I think so, is not because I do see all the pieces and see all the reference. It actually was harder than I thought it's gonna be, but you know what actually the reason is why I think so? Imagine if these are the new themes and we have returning themes that include, for example, either the conservation pack, the tropical pack, the some of the Asian packs we got, some of the other packs. So that would make no sense at all because it's way too similar. Like, the similarity to the old packs is actually the biggest issue here if these were the new packs. Now, if these were the new packs and you have the returning packs as well, there would be a lot too much of similarity. However, there obviously would also be a different chance, and that is that they would go intentionally for other sets from the first game, like the aquatic set, like, and now it's already getting a spooky one, for example, would work too. But yeah, I'm already stopping here because the other packs also bring a lot of the pieces that these new, if they were the new themes, also capture. So in any case, I don't see a scenario where the new packs, if these were the new packs, are different enough to make a huge impact compared to the old themes. You know what I mean? Because I found so many pieces from various piece counts or in-game pieces from the first game that it would definitely be a shame if they have redesigned all these wonderful pieces that we can see over here in just slight difference. You know, like, imagine you get the Africa pack from the old game and then this is the South pack. That would be a joke, wouldn't it? Because they are almost identical in its appearance, and yes, pieces are just like a little bit improved. So what I actually think is that this is the African pack enriched for the new game. Or maybe it's the African pack from in-game and the African pack from the Africa pack, because that was also a weird situation back in the day when we already had an Africa theme in the game, and then the Africa pack brought another Africa pack, which only enriched the African theme in game, which was great, but it was odd. Also, one thing I wanted to mention is this waterfall over here. Looks specifically like VFX pieces. This might actually be one of these little nupsies casting the VFX over here. Might be a little mistake that they left it in there. But yeah, it just looks fantastic. Okay, now as promised, let's go to the last frame for today. I won't go over the UI. We have done that already in the live stream. So if you're interested, I have done a very long little deep dive. Oh no, that was actually in my analysis video. What I wanted to get into is specifically items and themes. Like, it's not themes, but items for this wonderful habitat over here. So first things first, let's have a look at these little cobble pieces. I don't know what I should say, guys, but these are the ones. I have installed a mod lately for Planet Zoo 1 to have cobbles like these. Seeing that this is now in the base game is just so incredible. You remember, I have used the in-game egg, that little flexi-collar egg, to create cobblestone, which was the worst idea ever for performance. It almost literally destroyed me and my computer because that was just way too crazy. However, this looked really good, and that is why I am also specifically happy about how this is also looking in here. Can't wait for having that. Another thing that I really love is the way how the different ground textures seem to be moving and transitioning into each other, not moving, but transitioning into each other, how they blend basically from grass to leaves to, it also kind of looks interesting because that seems to be like a leaf scenery item, like a decal of some sort that you can put down, and this looks like to be leaf patterns from the brush, you know, from the terrain paint. And if so, that is a very good terrain paint that blends in super nicely. I love the fact how down here that green looks a lot more green opposed to that lesser green. So almost like because it had not too much sun on it, it didn't burn as much, and so it's still a lot greener than the rest of the grass. The same goes here for the center. And then, you know, I don't think it's dynamic, don't worry, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying is that we'd have different hues of green for the grass, which I'm a big fan of. Now, the variance in rocks is also fantastic, and I do believe they did take some of the rocks from Planet Coaster 2 when they gave us this kind of versatile set, because that rock over here looks interestingly similar to what I'm used to be placing down in Planet Coaster, so also very nice indeed. We do also see a lot of the returning climbing frame pieces, by the way, and if that wasn't certain, the same goes for that vine over there in the back here, or is that a liane? I don't know if you call it liane or vine or whatever, but something to, you know, do. We do also see the termite mold, and we see a little ball item over here. We do see a bedding, which looks a lot better, to be honest, but it also is definitely the old bedding. I love the posture here of the chimpanzee about to get to sleep, very nice. And there's just one little thing, like one tiny little thing in this shot that annoys me a little bit, and that is the fact that this chimpanzee again seems to be going on the far right outside lock. This was one of the most common problems we had in the first game, that when you had a item that had multiple climbing arrays or functionalities on it, they would always use the outer ones of these, and they were never going to walk in the middle. And it could be coincidence here, but it is a specific coincidence because we had that in the first time as well, game as well, always the same kind. So hopefully that's going to be fixed and is not really the issue that I make up now or talk about right now. And yeah, the shading in the water with the rocks, that has nothing to do with the scenery and theming, so I'm not going to talk about that too much. But yeah, we also do see that we get this climbing bridge back. The same goes for that mirror mobile kind of thing over here. Another bedding, some vending machines, so a lot of returning pieces. And speaking about pieces, also this kind of door style over here looks oddly familiar to me. Same goes about some of the pottery, some of the lampposts, and I stick by what I said. It would be very, very odd if these would be the new themes, and then they would bring old themes that were so similar to that, you know. And the criticism in Planet Coaster 2 when they brought the new themes were, like, it was basically, hey, why don't we get the old themes? Because we also want to have, like, pirate. We also want to have, like, sci-fi. The new themes are great, but we want to have these things back. Now, I don't think you would solve this criticism by literally bringing, and I do speak now in the Planet Coaster world, by bringing a better pirate pack, a better western pack, a better fairy tale pack, and a better, what was the other one, sci-fi pack. Some people potentially would have said, oh yeah, cool, because these are the ones, but most people would have said, are you even kidding us? Like, generally, don't you have any new ideas, you know? And I would stick to that. I would also be that guy to say, like, oh, okay, now we got a Africa 2.0 pack. We got a East Asia 2.0 pack. We got a, you know what I mean? This is what I meant. And I do hope that they have brought these old, like, sets into these northeast west things, and then we will be seeing 4 brand new themes built around aviaries, built around aquariums, obviously, because there is so much to be done with this. There's so much that you could do with these areas and the new areas of the game, that I actually think this would be the case. And I'm not even saying that we don't have new pieces. I'm just saying that the old themes come with an added bonus of being massively improved. Okay. That's been it. I hope you guys found this interesting. I hope you guys are not too mad by the tiny use of AI. I just thought it's gonna be, it was actually helpful to, you know, visualize what I meant by these individual pieces. And yeah, as soon as there's even more info about that, I'm obviously going to cover it. I'm obviously going to try to give you guys a very good overview of all that's coming. I am planning to do a little overview comparison of Planet Coaster 2 and Planet Zoo's lighting. I have started to rebuild a theme from some of the screenshots over here, so if you're interested in that, this will be uploaded soon as well. But in any case, thank you so much for watching. I hope I catch you soon, and until then, don't forget to subscribe if you found this interesting and helpful. Don't forget to like stuff and watch the next video if you have some more time, and until then, I talk to you in the next one. Bye.